Happy Monday, everybody. My name is Brandon Rosa, and welcome to episode 280 of the Xbox in 10 podcast, your weekly source of Xbox gaming news covered in around 10 minutes. Every Monday, this podcast covers new game releases, the previous week's gaming news, and we all learn an Xbox-related fun fact together. This show's on YouTube and podcast services around the world, so please subscribe on your favorite and leave a review. Xboxin10.com, no numbers, is your quick source for links to all of our podcast destinations and social media profiles which you can follow at Xboxin10. To start, let's talk game releases. The big game out last week was SpongeBob SquarePants The Patrick Star Game and NHL 25. The games coming out this week include Necro Story, Mark of the Deep, To the Moon, Camp Sunshine, Cats and Seek Osaka, Mimi the Cat New Friends, Heavy Cargo The Truck Simulator, Rogue Century, Tents and Trees, Dagon Complete Edition, Last Time I Saw You, Sky Oceans Wings for Hire, Doseki Miya Spun Glass, Casual Spot Series Hockey, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, Paper Plane Arena A Medieval Fantasy, Metaphor ReFantazio, Starship Troopers Extermination, Torii Garden, Undisputed, and Transformers Galactic Trials. There are some games that are either available now and or coming soon to Game Pass, and they are as follows. You can now play MLB The Show 24 on console, Open Roads on console, Sifu COD console and PC. On October 7th, you can play Mad Streets on cloud console and PC. And Inscryption, October 10th on cloud console and PC. Now to last week's biggest news stories, and we have 4 to cover this week. Number 1, Microsoft is seeking feedback from studios which aren't on Xbox. Tom Ivan at VGC writes, the previously player-centric Xbox research division is expanding to collaborate with game makers too. In a blog post, Microsoft said it wants to engage with game developers to, quote, help address pain points, end quote, and improve future tools and services. The initiative is open to all members of game studios, not just technical staff, and Microsoft thinks it, quote, could reshape the relationship between platform holders and game creators, end quote. As well as speaking to current Xbox developers, the company is seeking feedback from studios which aren't currently releasing games on Microsoft platforms. Quote, if you aren't on Xbox, we'd love to know why, end quote, said principal user researcher Dr. Deborah Henderson. Quote, and honestly, if you are using our competitors' products, you probably have a great perspective we could learn from, end quote. The initiative will, quote, employ a variety of research methodologies, mirroring those used in player-focused studies, but tailored for developers, end quote, including interviews, usability, playtesting, surveys, and flighting. US-based developers interested in participating can now sign up to do so. Microsoft said it's working on expanding recruitment to more countries. I wanted to highlight this news story as recently and in the past couple years, this is too often a news story. Now, there isn't too much to learn about when Sony inks a deal with a game developer for an exclusive, such as we've seen with Final Fantasy VII Remake on PS4 and then Rebirth on PS5 and Square Enix. They do need to understand why some other companies are skipping. I mean, most recently we had the Marvel vs. Capcom collection that we are, yes, now finally getting on Xbox platforms, but why wasn't it there at launch? We know we had the trouble with Baldur's Gate 3, and that had to be delayed on Xbox platforms because of the system parity clause they needed to hit with Xbox Series S and X. In my opinion, they're trying to get this so they can do all the right things when it comes to what we're going to call the next generation, which in my opinion is going to include a handheld console next year, which I think they'll try to leverage as the Series S variant of that generation. The higher cost, but lower powered version of the current generation until they launch their big next-gen console in 2026. You heard it here first, maybe I am completely off. Number 2. Square Enix wants to bring Final Fantasy XVI to Xbox, but can't say when. Tom West at True Achievements writes, with many players now collecting the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster Series Xbox achievements, we almost have the whole series on the platform. Rumors last month suggested that the whole slate could be coming to Xbox, but it is just a question of when. Square Enix Naoki Yoshida wants to release Final Fantasy XVI on Xbox and urges you to not lose hope. In a recent interview with Sports Illustrated, Square Enix producer Naoki Yoshida was asked if there was any news to be shared about a potential Final Fantasy XVI Xbox port now that it has been announced for PC. Quote, we do want to release it on Xbox, unquote, Yoshida said. Quote, but when it comes to the specifics such as when the game would be available and such, we are not in a position to be able to share anything. But of course I want to say that it's not as if there's zero hope, and we very much want to achieve that, so players should not give up in terms of their hopes, end quote. Last month, Windows Central's Jez Gordon suggested that we could see the whole slate of Final Fantasy games launch on Xbox in the future. Unsure about release timings, Gordon said that, quote, Final Fantasy VII will eventually come to Xbox, end quote, but we'd probably be able to expect pixel remasters that enable Final Fantasy XVI initially. VG247's Alex Donaldson also commented on the potential for a Final Fantasy XVI Xbox port, saying that, quote, Final Fantasy XVI I think is more obvious and clear-cut. You only need to look at Yoshida's comments over the last 6 or so months. It's clear that will happen sooner rather than later, end quote. The recent comments from Naoki Yoshida suggest that a Final Fantasy XVI Xbox port is in the works, so we'll just need to wait a little longer until it's announced. As for Final Fantasy VII, well, that one appears to be unknown for now. This is a big deal, and I will be intrigued to see just how many copies these games will sell on Xbox platforms, because clearly Square Enix is easier to make that deal with Sony and PlayStation because they just don't believe that Xbox gamers want to play these games. Personally, I don't either. I do want to get the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters since I haven't played any of these games. But this would be a big deal, and they do need to get these games releasing on their platform to rival with the competition. Number 3. Report, Ubisoft is considering a buyout from Tencent and partners. Ben Carey at Pure Xbox writes, you may have read reports recently on the state of Ubisoft and its financials following the release of Star Wars Outlaws. Heck, it all seems to have had an effect on Assassin's Creed Shadows and its sudden delay. Well, it sounds like the company could massively change course in the future if a new Bloomberg report is accurate. The report, which has dropped today, claims that Tencent and Guillermo family are considering a buyout of Ubisoft and taking the company private. The two parties would have full ownership of the company if it were to go ahead. Quote, the Chinese tech company and Guillermo Brothers Ltd. have been speaking with advisors to help explore ways to stabilize Ubisoft and bolster its value, the people said. As not to be identified discussing a private matter, one of the possibilities being discussed would involve teaming up to take the company private, end quote. However, the report stresses that, quote, Tencent and the Guillermo family are also considering other alternatives, end quote. So this move to go private is by no means a lock-in just yet. Bloomberg also states that, quote, Ubisoft shares rose as much as 33% in Paris, end quote, when its report hit the web, hinting that there's investor appetite for a big change at the French game maker. A story that many people thought could be coming. As Ubisoft continued to decline, it seemed like a big power like Tencent might come in and try to swoop up everything that they're trying to keep together. Personally, I do not want a company like Tencent, who doesn't really have much to do with the games industry, throwing their money around and buying up whatever they want. We'll definitely be keeping a close eye on this to see how this evolves in the months to come. 4. Assassin's Creed Shadows reportedly getting a co-op mode. Tom West at True Achievements writes, players excited about collecting the Assassin's Creed Shadows achievements when the game launches on February 14th, 2025, can seemingly look forward to a new post-launch game mode too. Ubisoft has reportedly been working on an Assassin's Creed Shadows co-op mode, which is expected to arrive as a post-launch update. For now, take this rumor with a pinch of salt, but we'll update our article filled with everything we know about Assassin's Creed Shadows, if and when Ubisoft makes it official. As reported by Insider Gaming, Ubisoft has reportedly been crafting a co-op mode for Assassin's Creed Shadows for a while now. The game mode is apparently being developed under the codename of League. Despite the game's recent delay, its co-op mode is expected to be added as a post-launch update. Unfortunately, it's currently unclear if we'll be able to explore the whole campaign with a friend as Yusuke and Naoi, or if it'll be a separate mode altogether. We've seen co-op in previous Assassin's Creed games, but it's always added as a separate game mode, leaving the campaign as a separate single-player experience. Both Assassin's Creed 3 and 4 had a multiplayer game mode called Wolfpack, which saw a team of 4 players work together against the clock to eliminate several NPCs, but it was a separate experience alongside the other PvP multiplayer modes. Assassin's Creed Unity is probably the closest we got to co-op in the campaign, as taverns within the single-player mode let you access Brotherhood missions, letting 4 players team up for co-op missions. You couldn't work through the main story together, but the missions available let each player bring in their own versions of the game's protagonist, Arno, including any gear they had unlocked in the main campaign. Unfortunately, Unity was a disaster for Ubisoft, and we never saw this mode reappear in any of the following games. Well, maybe that will change. If a lot of people were disappointed by the Assassin's Creed Shadows delay, maybe this will give them some hope and excitement. You certainly will get a better game when it launches in February than it does now, but is the competition going to be too fraught with Ghost of Yotei next year and many, many other games? Ubisoft needs this game to be a huge hit now more than ever. As always, we end our show with a fun fact about Xbox, and well, maybe he'll be more involved with Xbox in the future, so let's do a little quick Wikipedia recap on Naoki Yoshida. Naoki Yoshida, born May 1st, 1973, also known by the nickname Yoshi P, is a Japanese video game producer, director, and designer working for Square Enix. He is best known for his work on massive multiplayer online role-playing games, MMORPGs, mainly as director and producer of Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn and its expansions. Yoshida is credited with the revival of the original Final Fantasy XIV project by commentators like Game Informer, which is initially criticized for poor quality. Yoshida became an executive officer at Square Enix in 2015, the head of Square Enix Creative Studio 3, formerly Creative Business Unit 3, and part of the Final Fantasy Committee that is tasked with keeping the franchise releases and content consistent in 2014. For those that love Final Fantasy, absolutely know Yoshi P by name. The 15-year-old is a veteran of the game industry, starting on Dragon Quest and working all through Final Fantasy games throughout the years. The only way I would know this man is if he worked on Tactics Advance, as that is the only Final Fantasy game I have been even close to beating. Thank you all for listening to the Xbox in 10 podcast, your weekly source of Xbox gaming news covered in around 10 minutes. If you like the show, please subscribe to your favorite podcast server, share it with your friends, leave a review, and follow on all social media at Xbox in 10. This past week I've had no time to play any console games, so it has been Balatro and Marvel Snap on the phone. Absolutely adore those games. My name is Brandon Rose. You can follow me on Xbox at Baroza93. Hope you all have a great week. Stay safe and keep on gaming.